The big news lately in the world of rock and metal is, of course, the long-awaited reunion of Megadeth and former guitarist Marty Friedman, with Marty joining the band on stage last week after over 2 decades and now teasing another possible reunion later this year. The reunion of Dave Mustaine and Marty Friedman has also sparked some wishful thinking about Marty coming back into the band full-time. So today, we're going to take a look at why Marty left Megadeth in the first place and discuss if him rejoining the band is even a possibility. Marty Friedman had been trying to make a go at a music career for a number of years, initially with his bands Deuce, Hawaii, and then Cacophony along with the legendary Jason Becker, but nothing ever really took off until 1989 when Cacophony disbanded and he had 2 different auditions in the same week, Megadeth and Madonna. The Megadeth audition came first though, and obviously he was hired the same day that he auditioned, so the Madonna audition never even happened, with Marty noting that while that would have been a fun gig, Megadeth afforded him the opportunity to play the style of music that came naturally to him. Still though, seeing Marty play with Madonna would have been pretty interesting, although definitely not really a showcase of his chops. I mean, just take a look at Nuno Bettencourt playing with Rihanna. Anyways, Marty joined Megadeth just in time to record the thrash classic Rust in Peace, and to many fans, that lineup of Megadeth consisting of Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, David Ellefson, and Nick Menza is considered to be the prime era of the band, having appeared on 4 records, obviously Rust in Peace, Countdown to Extinction, Youthanasia, and Cryptic Writings. Marty Friedman would also appear on a 5th album, Risk, along with Jimmy DeGrasso on drums, and that record would ultimately lead to the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Marty to leave the band. Risk was released in 1999, and obviously at a time when Megadeth were very unsure of their identity as a band, including the 5th track on that record, Breadline. Originally, Marty had recorded the solo for that song, but by the final mix, it had been replaced by a solo from Dave. In an interview with Guitar World, Dave recalled saying, quote, "I said to management, well, you have 3 choices. Either you mute the solo completely, have Marty come back and redo it, or I do it. And then I said, if I do it, you had better tell him. Well, I redid it and nobody told Marty. So we're in there listening to the finished album and the solo comes on. It's my solo, not Marty's. I looked at him as tears ran down his face, and I knew right away that nobody had told him. I knew that was probably going to be the end of Marty Friedman." Now, in my opinion, Mustaine could have certainly made sure to tell Marty himself, but that's neither here nor there, as Marty would have likely left the band regardless, so I digress. There were a number of things that led to his departure, but a lot of it was due to just him not feeling the music anymore, stating in a 2003 interview, "I thought the music was too old-fashioned and didn't represent the kind of music that I liked anymore. I liked to continue to evolve, but the band was just too old school. It was hard to leave because the members were and still are like family, but I felt like I was lying to the fans. For example, playing Peace Sells and In My Darkest Hour in the year 2000 just seemed unnecessary in my life. It was hard to act like I still loved these tunes." Of course, as we all know, upon leaving Megadeth, Marty ended up moving to Japan and becoming quite a major star over there, being dubbed the Ryan Seacrest of Japan and appearing in well over 600 shows, as well as hosting his own show and becoming a Japan Heritage Ambassador in 2017. He has also released a number of solo albums throughout the last few decades, most recently with 2021's Tokyo Jukebox 3. Now, back in 2015, which I can't believe was almost a fucking decade ago, after the departures of Chris Broderick and drummer Sean Drover, Dave Mustaine attempted to reunite the classic lineup of him, Marty, Nick Menza, rest in peace, and Ellefson, who was already in the band at that point, but it supposedly fell apart due to Mustaine being cheap, with Menza stating at the time, "I was totally ready and excited to get back in Megadeth. I went to Dave's house/studio in San Diego this past December, and we jammed for the weekend, and it was totally cool. We instantly fell right back into our musical groove together. We have great chemistry. It's a magical thing." A few weeks after this, we all got together with our old manager Ron Lafitte for a dinner meeting at the Anaheim White House restaurant during NAMM. It was great seeing Ron and Marty. We all talked about the plans for a new record and touring, and I made it known I was into rejoining and making this my priority. I was pumped and even went as far as recording drums on 5 new Megadeth songs Dave had sent me. As soon as I got home and it was time to sit down and negotiate my terms in writing, I was offered a very unfair deal that was so wrong. They didn't feel I was worth anything to the band. Dave blocked my emails, changed his number, and then, apparently, Ron Lafitte was fired as the band's manager. Here is one of my favorite bands and a huge part of my life achievements, and I was shut out for wanting a fair deal. I am really blown away how this band conducts business. A band is about a group of people who have respect for one another, sense of loyalty, camaraderie, and most of all, honor and trust. I'm not a puppet. I have integrity, loyalty, and honor. That's who I am. I would imagine money played a big role in Marty not rejoining at that time either, but in a 2006 interview with LA Weekly, Marty had this to say. I think anyone that has something as good as Rust in Peace in their history doesn't want to revisit it unless you are going to top it. I didn't see any reason to mess with that. I didn't see a reunion being what it could be and what the fans deserved. If I were to revisit that, there would have to be a reason for me to do that beyond, let's go back and do it again. That's not a good enough reason. Of course, his tune would change a little bit when last week history would be made as Marty finally rejoined Megadeth on stage for the first time in 23 years in his current home of Japan at the historic Budokan in Tokyo to rave reviews. When recalling how this all came together, Marty said, quote, Dave just said, hey, we're playing Budokan. Do you want to play? And I'm like, yeah. And it was one day before I go to tour America. The timing was perfect. Budokan is like 20 minutes from where I live, and everything has been good between me and Dave for as long as I can remember. When he brought it up to me, it just seemed like such a perfect, yes, let's just do it, let's destroy it. It was great. You can find Megadeth-produced footage of the reunion and a ton of behind-the-scenes stuff here on YouTube as they put it out as a live stream, and it's definitely worth checking out. As it turns out, and ever so coincidentally if you ask me, Megadeth will be playing the massive Wacken Festival in Germany later this year, with Marty also performing a solo set, which will be his first time ever at the festival. Pretty coincidental if you ask me. Another onstage reunion at that show with Marty and Megadeth has all but been confirmed, with Marty saying you never know what can happen. Now, as we're all aware, reunions are all the rage, even extending to film, TV, and video games, with all of these reboots of classic games and shows and movies. So the potential is certainly there, but honestly, I just don't see it happening. I think Marty guesting on a new Megadeth release or even touring in support of the band and then jamming a few songs together on stage every night is definitely a possibility, but I don't ever see a full-blown reunion coming together. Hell, even if the classic reunion would have gotten back together back in 2015, I don't think it would have lasted. Maybe for a tour or so, but that's about it. In the live stream that I mentioned, Marty makes it a point to go on and on and on about how great Mustaine is and how Megadeth is essentially his and nobody else's, and he's absolutely right. Marty was a member of Megadeth during their height, arguably a massive contributing factor to their success, but Marty has also found success in his own lane, and I highly doubt that he wants to be a part of a project with minimal control, and not to mention Megadeth as a whole is in a much different place now than they were in the 90s. At this point, Megadeth has become a legacy act with a classic back catalog filled with key tracks and all the quote-unquote hits that they need to pack out venues for years to come. While I do think that their last 2 albums, Dystopia and most recently The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead, were absolutely fantastic, my opinion, it doesn't even really matter if any new material that they put out is good or not. They have the back catalog forever. Plus, how many legacy acts get the opportunity or are even willing to go out and support newer acts? Talk all the shit that you want about Five Finger Death Punch, but that band and their team knows how to put together a fantastic rock and metal tour. Not to mention, Megadeth has arguably the best lineup they've had since Marty left the band. Sure, it would be great to still have David Ellefson in the band, but, you know. In other recent Megadeth news, it is funny to point out that Mustaine recently threw some shade at his former band Metallica about them not taking him on tour, saying, quote, "I wanted things to be reconciled and to be friends, but for whatever reason, they didn't. And Metallica is represented by the same agent as Megadeth, and I've asked our agent, you're Metallica's agent too. Why won't those guys play with us? What are they afraid of? The fact is simple. The world wants to see Megadeth and Metallica play together. Does Megadeth need Metallica? No. But Metallica talks about their fans, but they don't give them what they've been asking for. What are they afraid of? I don't know. It's not me, it's them." All right, though, I gotta run. My fiance is waiting to have my bullets sweating down her face, so I gotta go. But thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.